Hey everyone, Siddharth this side, and today we will be solving another question on LeetCode, which is majority element 2. And in this video, I will be discussing the generalized approach to solve these kind of questions, because there is another question on LeetCode where we have to count the number of integers which appear more than n by 2 times. So first, let's discuss how to solve this problem using brute force method. So in the brute force method, in both of the question, what we have to do, we will create an hash map and we will count the frequency of each of the element, and after that we will traverse into a hash map and we will check if the value of the element is greater than the threshold, which is n by 3 in this case. Then we will add that element to a list and we will return the final list. So in this way we can solve this problem, but that solution will take linear time space, which we don't want, which that will take linear space, which we don't want. We want to solve this question in a constant space. So let's discuss. So for solving this question in constant, using constant space, we can use Moore's voting algorithm. So let's discuss. Mm, So what we have to do? Okay, let's first discuss how can we find the potential candidates, which can be the majority element. So for that, what we have to do? So for n by 2 majority, there can be one candidate only, because let's see if there is this is our array 2 1 and 2. So its length is 3 and 3 divided by 2 is 1. So we have to find the element which occur more than one time, which which is 2 in this case, which is occurring 2 times. And if the element is occurring 3 times, if two elements occurring more than one time, then it will become more than the length of the array, which is not possible. So this is the concept we have to use. And for n by 3 we have only two candidate possible. You can check this out as well. Okay, there is only two candidate possible. Let's take an array. So 2 comma 2 and 1 and 3 3. So the length is 5 here, and 5 divided by 3 will going to be 1. So the candidate more than 1 is only 2. And if we decrement, or if we can change these element, or if we want one occur more, if we want this one also occur more than one time, then the length of the length of the array become more than n, which is not possible. So we can say that there is the potential candidates for n by 3, for n by 3 is 2 only, and for n by 2 there is one candidate, n by 3 is 2, n by 4 there is 3 candidates are possible. So this is a generalized case. Now what we have to do, now we will initialize 4 variables. First two variables are for the each candidate, candidate 1 and candidate 2, and two variables for their vote counting. So after that what we will do, uh, first we will initialize this first element to our candidate 1, or we can initialize it to candidate 2 as well. After that, after counting this 2, after initializing this 2, we will increment its counter, because we have find this element for the first time. After that we will increment its counter to again 1, again to 1, again we have added 1 to this its voting, and after that we have encountered this one. So we haven't encountered one yet, so we will add this to a second candidate, second potential candidate. Now this 2 we have encountered before, so we will add this to our voting list, voting counting. And after that, this 3 is neither candidate 1 nor candidate 2, so we will decrement each of candidate 1 and candidate 2 voting count, and we have encountered 3 again, so its counting becomes 0, and here it's become, after decrementing, because here it will become 1, after encountering 1 here it will become 1, and after encountering 3 we have decrement this its counting, so it will become 0. Now here the counting, in this case the counting will become 1 in the first case, and in the second case it will become 0. So now after reaching to 3, the counting of the candidate 1 is 0, so we will make 3 as our first candidate. So 3 will become our first candidate, and we will initialize it voting counting to 1. So in this way we can find the potential candidate which is occurring ny more than ny 3 times. Now let's see the coding part to solve this question. So first we will initialize two variables. First is count 1 to 0, in count 2 equals to 0, and after that let's first a candidate is pointing to null. Now let's make a second candidate as well null. Now what we will do, we will check the number of potential candidates. For that we have to traverse into an array, so let's comment it out as well. Checking the number of checking the possible candidates. After that in nums, so what we have to check, if this num1 does not equals to null and num is equals to candidate 1. So if this is the case, we have to increment our first candidate count, because the case will going to be 2, because we have encountered 2 in the start. Now we have encountered it again, so we will increment it counter by 1. Now we will check for the second candidate as well. Else if num2 does not equal to null, num is equals to num2, so what we will do, we will increase the counter of the second candidate, so num2 plus plus. And after that what we have to do, we will check if our count 1 becomes 0 or not. If our count 1 becomes 0, so we have reached that case that voting of the first candidate becomes 0, and we have encountered a new candidate which will going to be 3, sorry, this 3. So as the counting of the first candidate becomes 0, now we have to make new candidate, and that new candidate will going to be a current element. So our num1 become our current element, which is num, and after that we will make it count to 1 again, because we have encountered it for the first time. And after that we have to check if count 2 become 0. If that's the case, then we will make Now a second candidate has a current element, and we will increment, we will make its vote counting to 1. Now after that our last case will going to be what we have to check. We don't have to check anything now, we just have to, sorry, we just have to decrement each voting counting, count 1 minus minus, count 2 minus minus. Why we are doing that? Because we have encountered an element which is neither a candidate 1 nor a candidate 2, so we have to increment the voting counting. Now after doing this, now we have find the potential candidate. Now we have to verify if if the voting of these candidate is greater than a threshold. So first define threshold, which will going to be nums shit, nums dot length divided by 3, because this is the condition. And now we will start traversing into our array again. So int num in nums. Now what we have to do, let's make our counting to 0 as well. Count is equals to 0 and count 2 equals to 0. Why we are doing this? Because we have to check it again. So we have to count from zeros. So let's, so if our if a nums 1 does not equals to null, and our num is equals to num1, then what we have to do, we have to increment count 1 by 1, or let's copy paste, because we have to check it again for the candidate 2 as well. So if num2 does not equals to null and num is equals to num2, we will increment second candidate answer. So after this what we have to do, now we have count the number of uh, votes of each of the potential candidate. Now what we have to do, we have to check if the voting counting is greater than a threshold. So for that, if count 1 is greater than a threshold, if this is the case, we have to, let's make our array list first, because there we have to add our elements. So integer result is equal to new array list. Now let's check. So if our count 1, our voting of the first candidate is greater than a threshold, we have to add that candidate to our array list. So count 1. Now we will check this for the second candidate as well. So count 2 is greater than threshold, we will add count 2 as well. And in the end, we will return our array list. So return result. So let's try to run this code. Let's see. Okay, count 2 plus plus, where's the mistake, 13th line. Okay, now let's try to run this code. Now where's the problem, nums1. Okay, let's change this as well. Now let's try to run. Okay, we have to add one sign as well. Now where is the problem? Threshold, if we have find it correctly, num1 is not equals to null and num is equals to num1. Num2 does not equals to null, num is equals to num2. Increment its counter, and if we if our count1 is equals to 0, we will make our current num1 to our current element, and after that we have make its counting to 1, and after that we have done the same for second candidate. We have minus the counter here as well. After finding a threshold, after finding the voting of each candidate, if num1 does not equals to none and num is equals to num1, we will increment its voting counting by 1, and we have done the same for the second candidate as well. After that we have make an array list, and we have checked if our count1 is greater than threshold, we will add that element to our array list, and we have done the same for threshold. Now dot length divided by 3, so result dot add count2. Okay, so we have done this mistake, like we are adding count1, so we have to add the candidate, and consciously I have added the counting. So now let's try to run this. I think now it should work fine. Okay, now let's try to submit this problem. Okay, so all the test case have been processed. So thank you, see you in the next video, bye.